Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Canon EOS R6. So let's dive right into it. Well, first, what the heck we are talking about? We are talking about a 20 megapixel full frame camera. Now, this is one thing that I truly like about Canon is that no matter what happens, so far they have not released a single APS-C camera on R mount, which is amazing because again, there are situations where people have been fooled or made mistakes because not everybody is a camera nerd or a geek where they're like, no, this mount goes with this flange distance with this and all that. So where they've bought full frame camera but bought a APS-C lens or vice versa. So making sure that R so far only means full frame is amazing. The lens will work, the camera body will work, you don't have to think about it. And not to mention APS-C is not that good simply because processors are so expensive that by the time you make a good APS-C camera, it's costing more or less the same as basically a full frame camera. Example, let's say GH5 versus Sony A7 Mark III because of the processor. So making a full frame camera, awesome. Then it has solved certain problems with all Canon cameras. Is basically Canon is not into the IBIS, but so far they have finally added IBIS. IBIS has certain benefits compared to a lens system simply because IBIS can compensate for rotation, which a lens based system cannot. Lens can easily compensate for two axes and it will do much better than any IBIS system. However, it cannot rotate. You cannot rotate a lens, it will not change the image, but sensor you can rotate. So that is the inherent benefit. Basically you get inherently three whole axis of movement to compensate for vibrations, so which is awesome. That's why Canon has this, and early reports are in that it is truly good. It's like, yeah, somebody sat down, properly tested it, calibrated it, and it's a really good output. Only companies that are even close to it is a debunked company basically at this point in time, Olympus and Panasonic. So it is really good in terms of IBIS, much better than Nikon's and Sony's implementation. And one final problem, which was like, dude, nobody could make sense why the heck Canon was doing that. It had only one single slot. Basically in R and RP bodies, they fixed that, which is awesome. So it now is a tool that people can truly recommend to professionals. Then it has dual pixel 2. Now you might be like, what's the difference between dual pixel 1 and dual pixel 2? It's not too much for us, but for backend it's a really big improvement simply because I also have dual pixel camera, which is, this is camera that you are seeing, Canon 800D. It has dual pixel. So dual pixel, they learned a lot, but in early days it was consuming a lot of processing power. It was not free, and that was the inherent quote-unquote reason why the heck dual pixel was disabled in 4K and all that jazz. So they have fixed it. Now dual pixel 2 is much more efficient algorithm wise. On top of that, it has one unique thing that on spec sheet at least you can notice is that it has 100% coverage. Gone are the days where 96% coverage, 98% coverage. No, gone 100% coverage. You don't think about coverage, which is awesome, which is like truly awesome. Then you also have to understand this, technology itself is meaningless unless there is a driving force behind it. So basically hardware plus software, they have to make love. If they don't, you date. So they Sony also had like very good autofocus system from very early on, but they were not polished in terms of the autofocus implementation. But over time they reached a point where they are now the milestone. They have reached animal IAF, bird IAF, they have reached to that point. But Canon is also catching up very quickly, and the early results are in. It's really good, or it's really close. And this camera was released in July 2020. However, this time Canon did something a bit different. They leaked it, they leaked it very slowly over time. So people knew this camera is coming and most of the specs were already out. So it's kind of different for Canon, but to be understandable, the pandemic of 2020 truly did hurt many businesses, and I'm reasonably sure camera companies would have also suffered. So they're like, no, don't forget about us, because again, once people forget about you, you're gone. Remember HTC? So this camera in a way right now technically is available, and you can buy it in India for 2.16 lakhs or $2,500 US. So it's not too expensive. It's basically the same price range as A7 Mark III when it was launched, but Mark III right now is very cheap. So for whom this camera is made, like what is the target audience? This time Canon has went a bit differently, because if you take 5D Mark III or Mark IV or something like that, or take Canon XT series, those are tools specifically made for specific audience. They are not something that you can just give any photographer and be confident that they will be okay, because some cameras are so big, so heavy, so bulky that it's not well suited for wedding photographer, because again, they're not gonna carry a monopod with everything. In some scenarios there will, like, camera is awesome but it's so expensive that you do not have any money for lens. This camera is not like that. It's surprisingly well rounded. Basically it's a Canon's offering where it's like, buy this, and you will be good. Like you will be set for almost everything. You can do a bit of wedding, you can do a bit of model photography, architecture and all that. Basically you can be settled for very long thing. And so in terms of photography, in terms of capability, dual card slots, reliability, autofocus accuracy, burst rate, everything is good. Like it's really good. Then because they have finally focused on video, and I'm reasonably sure Dual Pixel 2 has the credit for it, they have handled the video aspect also, because before this Canon was not a 4K camera, simply because you could have bought Canon RP, you could have bought Canon R, but the crop on 4K was so bad that you were like, dude, I would have been better if I bought Sony A60-100 APS-C camera. I would still get bigger capture area. So that was like really bad idea from Canon side, but now they have fixed it. Now it's a truly almost uncropped. Again, I'm not sure Canon Cripple Hammer something, because it still has a crop of 1.07x, so it's a little bit. So basically if your 12mm lens might become 13mm, it's not too much an issue, and unless you really know what you're looking for, you will not notice it, but it's there. And at this point it's like arguing about semantics. So I can truly call it a full frame video camera, a 4K camera, a 4K 60 frame per second camera, which is really good. And not to mention, it has solved Sony's one of the limitation. It's no longer 8-bit only, it has 10-bit. Now you might be say Nikon also has 10-bit. That has output. This internal 10-bit done 422. So it's quite amazing in that way. That's why I'm saying, like, it can cover surprisingly large amount of people. Flip out screen for the vloggers and for every Tom, Dick and Harry. Very good viewfinder. Basically it's a very polished camera where it's like nice, like it's truly nice. However, because we have slowly improved in terms of megapixel, many people will be like, I'm not buying 20 megapixel anymore. Now you have to understand, there is not a direct correlation. Basically, let's say you go from 20 megapixel to Sony's 60 megapixel, it's not like you're gonna get 3 times the detail. However, you will get more detail. Specifically, if you have good lenses, you can take a newspaper and to keep capturing it further and further away until you can resolve what is written on it. You will find 60 megapixel will allow you to go a bit further. So, and specifically people who take photographs of like jewelry, things of that nature, where you have like in Indian weddings, the bride and grooms, they are well dressed, very it's not just like white dress or something like that. It's like ludicrously intricate. And not to mention the gold jewelry that are put here, it's like wow, the amount of detail, the nakashi we call it, is on a different level. So you have to capture that. And 20 megapixel versus 60, at this point in time, you will like, no, I'm not touching 20 megapixels. So some people who are megapixel sensitive, or their work requires a highest megapixel possible, they will be like, no matter how good it is, like it's truly good, like you can make big prints, but there is a tangible benefit of having 60 megapixel. And not to mention, current gen 60 megapixel no longer has that like horrible ISO performance. That's also has been taken care of. So for some people that will be a big issue. For most people it won't be. So what about the Canon Cripple Hammer? Like, we have noticed this for a fact that Canon has been crippling their camera, and many people started to point it out very early on that what the hell Canon is doing. Canon is drunk on power, and they are thinking like they're Apple. They can do whatever they want and nobody will do anything about it. It's like the best example I have where I'm like, dude, what the hell Canon is doing is like 70 to 300 millimeter lens. It's a very good telephoto lens, good quality, awesome lens. I had Mark II with testing it. Then I decided I'm gonna buy Mark III. Awesome, no problem. I bought it. Here's the deal: the lens hood was missing. And I'm like, okay, that's a minor inconvenience. I'm gonna go into a shop and then buy the Mark II one. No, they designed a new one and that was not available. I'm like, it has OLED display and it does not have lens hood. Ask any telephotographer who's like, dude, do you need lens hood or do you need OLED screen on a lens which you know not gonna see? It's like, what the hell? Like, that's a tangibly somebody decided you have to buy a lens hood because it's necessary. Otherwise, you will have light bouncing inside and your contrast will go down. Like literally, you will make lens inferior by removing hood, and we're gonna remove that because $1 plastic part, we shall remove it and then we're going to give you OLED screen on that. So Canon has been doing things that many photographers left Canon very early on because of that. It's like, dude, I can't tolerate this. So that created this whole chain of event where now people call it Canon Cripple Hammer. It's like 4K recording at like micro four thirds size, or no, smaller than micro four thirds size. So that, what happened to that? Like, is Canon making awesome camera? Not really. It still has that weird USB-C basically handshake, because you have to understand this. USB-C has been it's been built with a lot of experience with all other USB standards, and this time because mobile powers are consuming more and more and laptops are consuming less and less, so we are reaching a point where a small cable like USB-C can charge a laptop and a powerful mobile. So what people are doing, they created a standard known as power delivery standard on USB-C. It has handshake capability. Basically, it's going to talk to your device, both ends, basically the adapter and the receiving competing equipment, they're gonna talk, and if they don't talk, they're only gonna be 5 volt. You're like, you're safe. But if they talk, you can ask for higher voltage. You can be like, bro, I can handle this, give me 20 volt. And you're like, you're a laptop, you're like, dude, I need more oomph. They're like, bro, 20 volt at 5 amps, that's 100 watts of power that can be delivered using a normal USB-C cable if it's built up to standard, and charging a laptop. That can be done, and people have been doing it. So USB-C has more than enough oomph to charge a DSLR. That's like, bro, don't even bother me. But because of the handshake protocol, basically Canon has some custom hoo-ha in it. Basically Canon's USB-C adapter, that's gonna work, but the moment you try to connect to other things, it may or may not work. So many people are having this, and you might be like, is it similar with other cameras? Not really. With Fuji and Panasonic, they are really good with this. Sony still has to do some work. Sony does charge, that's not an issue. It's just that it does not charge at high rate. It's like, so that's an issue, and that's truly bad, for simply because this camera is kind of very good at starter camera, and you're only gonna have one battery, and the batteries are not super cheap that you're gonna have a battery in the camera body, another battery in the battery cradle is a good structure if you have 2-3 batteries. If you have only one battery, USB charging is a better option. Crippling that one, that's weird. That's like, really, why? Like, what are you gonna gain after that? Then that itself might annoy you if you're used to, like how I'm used to battery cradle. That will not bother you too much. But missing all eye video recording, that's like really weird, because Canon is selling this part, ultimate uncompromised 4K camera. Like, you can go down to the basically Canon's website, and they are highlighting that part. So it's like, why all eye is so important is because videos have huge file size. So somebody came up with this clever idea, let's not compress the frame, but frames itself. So the one frame you have, it's awesome. They're not gonna touch it. It's like, dude, whatever data comes out, we're gonna store it. But here's the deal. Each second has around 30 frames. Let's just go with that, 30 frames per second. So you're like, how about we removed every third frame? How about we removed every 2 frames? And then we have another frame. And to make sure we are not deleting basically file from in the center part, convert it into an algorithm which tells what was the difference between, like, this frame, let's say frame number 1 and frame number 5. So frame number 2 and 3 and 4, they will be calculated. It does work. That's what we have in almost every TV, CD, DVDs and all that jazz. That's how it is. However, it's not suited for video recording. It's like, it's a good for deliveries, basically for WhatsApp, Telegram, YouTube and all that. That's good for it. But if you have to do video recording for highest quality possible, because you have to understand, now instead of their frame being there, it's just a mathematical algorithm. It's not going to be as good as a raw frame, and people can see that, especially if you have some things that can exaggerate basically compression hardware, like waters, leaves and all that. You can easily say, hey dude, that's not all eye recording. And another aspect of it, which really matters to people, is like, bro, all eye is ludicrously easy to edit, even though file sizes are huge, because your computer playhead, when you are playing in DaVinci Resolve, when you are playing in Adobe Light Premiere, it's not gonna it's like, what the hell is supposed to be here? I have to calculate that. It does not have to do that. So it's much more smoother editing experience. It matters. Your time is valuable, so it matters if your computer is like, I got this, versus what the hell, wait, let me figure out what's supposed to be here. So for a video camera, having all eye is important. Now Canon is saying all eye is there for, let's say, R6, R5. Awesome, but here's the deal, that camera selling point supposed to be 8K, not 4K. So why the heck 4K is crippled in this? And to be fair, there is one weird rumor floating around. I have provided the video down below, that this might be fixed in firmware, which will be like, really? But again, and I do find Canon's behavior odd, because I have provided the PDF down below, which all the specification, it specifies a date there. It's like July 2020. I'm like, why the heck you have a date? It's like, it's finalized, you're not going to change it. So they might change it, that's why they have the date there. So be mindful of that. It might be fixed. All eye is kind of necessary, and not to mention, it also has another benefit. Your camera also remains cool, because camera, instead of compressing the data, it's like, yeah, just record it. It's much easier. So that is very weird for a video centric camera. It's odd. Then the one thing that truly bothered me, like, I was like, I'm gonna buy this. It has a recording limit even in full HD. I'm like, why does it have recording limit? To understand this, you have to go back. In early days, we had limitation because memory card size systems were running on FAT system. FAT system was only capable of handling 4 GB single files. Basically, you cannot make one file which is bigger than. You have to go to exFAT or NTFS system. So cameras were limited back then. Back then, you were familiar with 10-minute recording limit. That was because of that 4 GB file size. That has been fixed. We have better file system now. But then why still have 2959 recording limit? That's because European Union's like, yo, if your camera can record around more than 30 minutes, it's a video camera. Why that's a big deal? Because they will charge more for it. Basically, tax percentage, for example, is 20% for video camera. It will be 25% 25% for a video camera, 20% for an image camera. To make sure the camera prices are low, companies were like, yeah, just make one model, and they did not wanted to have different models, like in, one in America, one in Europe, one in India. They're like, just tone down everything. So 21 and 59 became the standard, and basically Panasonic became the first one. Is like, just pay it. That's why GH5 was so expensive, and recently that has been removed. That's why Sony A6100, A6400, A6600, A7 R4 also has fixed this, A9 Mark II also has fixed this, because there is no longer tax intensive. So they are like, yeah, done, just give as much as you want. They will no longer go from like, okay, a red camera is the same camera as like, this camera. So that has been fixed. But why the heck they have limitation? I can understand that if they are like, dude, 4K, we overheat, okay, give me unlimited full HD. I'm okay with that, I'm awesome with that. But that limitation is really weird. And another aspect, I read the whole specification. The temperature where they are testing all this thing is 23 degrees Celsius. Now, I live in India, you may be living in Canada, and you're like, 23 degrees, that's too hot, man. I live in a place where outside air temperature reaches up was 51 degrees Celsius normally. So you can understand that. And not to mention, technically everything should be standardized to 25 degrees Celsius. So that's kind of odd. It's like, and 2 degree does make a difference. So be mindful, especially if you have to do a lot of outdoor shooting or in direct sunlight shooting. This may not be awesome. So be mindful of that. And another aspect which they downgraded, I have Canon 800D, which has HDMI mini, which is a type C adapter. Basically this is much bigger than that, and they are using type D. Now the reason for that is because it has 10-bit output. You can easily attach an external recorder and have a better monitor experience with better histograms and all that jazz, and you can have all eye recording. So people would be like, hey, no problem, it does not have all eye, I can get that, but I'm gonna connect it. But because of this plug size, most of the people will just not use it, simply because these plugs are very prone to breaking, and they have like literally more pins than USB-C. So that's one of the weird decision, because again, I have a cheaper camera than this. Why the heck my cheap camera has a better port than this one? And you can see it's not like, oh, physically they could not fit it like the same excuse given by Fuji. Like Canon can fit it. It's like huge. So there is still a bit of cripple hammer there. Specifically that 2959 is a really bothers me. So should you buy or should you wait? At this point in time, I will suggest wait for Sony. Even if Sony does not create the next awesome camera, it will still affect the price, and generally in a positive direction. Basically, price will go down. So I would advise wait. And by the time this video is being uploaded, there is a good chance it may have already been released. So be mindful, apply some brakes, and wait for people to do actual temperature testing, because that is the one, worrisome part. At 23 degrees Celsius, I'm like, for me, again, you can understand, like I live in a place where it's like 50 degrees Celsius. Heck, this place itself is right now around 29. So you can understand that aspect. Another aspect that bothers a newcomer is like, okay, I'm gonna go into this, I'm gonna buy lenses and all that. Native lens selection is low. Native, you're not gonna buy EF mount lenses and then gonna buy an adapter and then gonna connect it. No, native mounts, you don't have too many options. That is an inherent limitation, because every time I say this very clearly, select the goddamn lens first before you buy the camera. Select the lenses, like, oh, I'm gonna buy this lens. For this lens, I'm gonna buy a body. You have to be mindful like that, because lenses are the eyes. That has to work, everything else has to fall apart if that does not work. So native lens selection is low. That itself would not be an issue in older Canon or older Nikon, simply because the lens mounts were, even though they were not open, they have been reverse engineered long enough that now, like, you can buy a Sigma lens and the autofocus will work. You can buy a Tamara lens, it will work. However, Sony bypassed that. It's like, no, it's open source, take it, and not technically open source, but you get the idea. They went to Tamron, bought 20% of the share, and even in Sigma they're like, dude, this is how our lens system works. So third party lens selection allows you to buy something that you can afford, while the body is ludicrously cheap, but the lenses are idiotically expensive. Now remember, they are awesome. Here's the deal, what's the point of awesome if you can't buy it? Like, let's say 70 to 200 f2.8, best lens out there. Here's the deal, you can't afford it. 70 to 200 f4 lens, which you can afford, and it's lightweight enough, and because of modern lens, basically modern lens, I'm saying modern sensors ISO performance, f4 is more than good enough. And at 200 f4, yeah, that's respectable. You can't buy it. So this is one thing you have to be mindful of. Lens native selection is very low, third party selection is almost zero. So you have to be mindful, and be mindful if you do any form of long video recording, which many people are doing in this pandemic. Sony will remove that 30-minute limit. I'm damn sure about that. Why? Because all the recent ones have already removed it. So that Sony A7S, basically A7, I'm saying, yeah, A7S3 could be very interesting to see. Wait for it. Just relax, wait for it. So this was my presentation on Sony, why I'm saying Sony, Canon EOS R6. Hopefully you liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.